This article, titled Pupillary Light Reflex and Menace Response in Neonatal Camel Calves, Camelus dromedarius, published in Veterinary Medicine and Science, delves into the development of crucial neurological responses in newborn camel calves. The pupillary light reflex, PLR, and menace response are essential components of neurological and ophthalmic evaluations in animals. The menace response, elicited by approaching a threatening movement, such as a finger, towards the eyes, results in an immediate closure of the eyelids. Meanwhile, the PLR, tested by shining a bright light into each eye, causes constriction of the pupil in the same eye. The research aimed to understand the timeline of the development of these responses in newborn camel calves. 30 healthy camel calves were observed from birth until both the menace response and PLR were fully established. Calves with birth complications, congenital issues, prematurity, or any illness during the study were excluded. The researchers closely monitored the calves' behavior, movements, and environmental adaptation as primary indicators of their visual function. To assess the menace response, the researchers swiftly moved a finger towards each eye, taking care not to touch the face or eyelashes and avoiding any air turbulence. A positive response was recorded if the calf blinked rapidly with the closure of the eyelid. The test was repeated multiple times, and a consistent response was considered positive. For the PLR, a bright flashlight was shown into each eye, and constriction of the pupil in the illuminated eye indicated a positive reflex. Data analysis was conducted using the Mann-Whitney test to compare responses between male and female calves. The study found that all camel calves exhibited a positive PLR immediately after birth. The menace response, however, took longer to develop, with the first response observed at 14 days of age. Most calves developed a menace response by 16 days old, and all calves showed a positive response by 18 days old. While the median age for the development of the menace response was 16 days, the time to develop this response did not differ significantly between male and female calves. Figure 1, titled Development of Menace Response with Age in Camel Calves, provides a visual representation of the number of camel calves that developed the menace response at different ages. The x-axis represents the age in days, ranging from 14 to 18. The y-axis represents the number of camel calves. The graph demonstrates that the majority of camel calves developed the menace response at 16 days of age, with fewer calves developing it at 14, 15, 17, and 18 days. The discussion section of the article highlights the existing literature on the development of the menace response and PLR in various animal species. The menace response is an acquired cortical response that develops over time after birth. Studies on dairy calves have shown that calves raised in isolation lack a menace response, while those housed with their mothers develop it within a few days, suggesting the role of environmental interaction in its development. The study's finding that the menace response develops in camel calves by 18 days of age aligns with similar research in other species. Foals typically develop this response by 12 to 14 days, with some studies reporting development as early as 9 days. Calves typically show a menace response by 5 to 7 days, while lambs and kids develop it by 8 and 14 days, respectively. Notably, rabbits have been observed to lack a menace response. Puppies and kittens generally develop this response around 12 weeks of age, although it has been observed as early as 3 to 4 weeks. The variation in developmental timelines across species may be attributed to differences in living conditions or other unknown factors. The relationship between gender and the development of the menace response appears to differ across species. This study found no significant difference in the development of the menace response between male and female camel calves. This aligns with findings in lambs. However, male goat kids have been observed to develop this response later than females. The immediate presence of the PLR in camel calves from birth is consistent with observations in foals and calves. However, in lambs and goats, the PLR has been reported to develop up to 20 hours after birth. From a clinical standpoint, veterinarians conducting neurological or ophthalmological examinations on neonatal camel calves should be aware that the menace response may not be present until 18 days of age, while the PLR is present immediately after birth. This study concludes that the PLR is present immediately after birth in camel calves, while the menace response may take up to 18 days to develop. These findings should be considered when conducting neurological and ophthalmic assessments on newborn camel calves. From Vet NeuroJar. Keep those minds inspired, hearts light, and tails wagging.